The name of the podcast is Dream Plan Execute, where I highlight people who dream frictionless, plan thoroughly, execute relentlessly. And so I just want to get into who is Dr. Valbrun.
I was asked at 5 years old, what is it that you want to be? Most of the time, it's just the world around you that you experience, that you see, and whatever that is, you're like, oh, I'm going to be that, right? So whatever's on TV, all these other things, right? And, the long and short of it was I said, I'm going to be a doctor. I did not know how the path was going to look like. The only thing I knew was that I'm going to have to go through some level of education. Adulting is hard. You might as well give yourself as much advantage while you're young so that when you have to adult, it's a little bit easier, a little bit more manageable. And I hate to say this, but it's got to be work on you first, because if you're the owner of a business, and I know some people who are great stewards of other people's businesses, their own businesses, those kinds of things, but then in their own life, their life is a complete and utter mess. If you really want to thrive, you got to be doing stuff when nobody sees it. You got to be dedicated to your own survival and to the survival of others, to those who are under your care. You realize that an overnight success takes about 10 years. Overnight success takes about 10 years. Then you get to that 10-year mark, and if they're consistent and they love doing the thing, they're on a level that people will never reach. Consider this. If you are consistent with making sure that you are developing and you have the talent, ain't nobody touch you.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Or should I say Dr. Valbrun?
Look at it. I knew you were gonna correct yourself. I knew it. I was like, he's gonna say Dr. Valbrun. I know he is.
Well,
Good morning.
listen, I'm happy you got a chance to come on the podcast. The name of the podcast is Dream Plan Execute, where I highlight people who dream frictionless, plan thoroughly, execute relentlessly. And so I just want to get into who is Dr. Valbrun, right? And how do you come about becoming an MBA and a medical doctor? That's two different pathways, but they do intersect. And a
Mhm.
lot of people just need to know how you went about executing this phenomenal task. So I want to get into, your beginning, how you started, and how church has played a role in your success. So,
Sure.
yeah.
And thank you for having me. Truly, blessed to be on this podcast. Let me tell you, and just a shout out to you, for all of you who are listening and might listen in the future. This guy right here, Mr. Ramon Parchment, is also somebody who you should be wanting to model after in terms of dream, plan, execute, because the man is actually doing that and living that as we speak. So big shout out to you, and glad that you're doing this on this platform so that you can actually change people's lives. A little bit about myself. And I'll start from the beginning. It'll be a little long, but it won't be too long. Let me just say it like that. I was asked at 5 years old, what is it that you want to be? Now, at 5 years old, you'd think, what does anybody know at five, right?
Right.
Most of the time, it's just the world around you that you experience, that you see, and whatever that is, you're like, oh, I'm going to be that, right? So whatever's on TV, all these other things, right? I answered in my family, when you answer something like that, you gotta really be on it. Unfortunately, you gotta be on it and just follow through. And the long and short of it was, I said, I'm gonna be a doctor. But I did not know how the path was gonna look like. The only thing I knew was that I'm gonna have to go through some level of education. Now, nobody told me how hard the road was gonna be, okay? No one, and I mean no one, was was there to say, "Oh, you should probably do X, Y, and Z, and so on and so forth." Right? So we just followed. And I say we because I have other family members who are doctors as well, who followed a specific path to that success. And the thing is, when you're at the ground level, right? So when you're in elementary and in high school, the only thing that they tell you is to do well in school, right?
Right. Yeah.
And which is perfectly fine. Okay. If you do well in school, you will be fine. Okay. That's great. However, there are other aspects of your education that goes beyond the four walls of the school,
Yes.
that goes beyond just the campus, things that you absolutely need as a human being to function, to live, and really, and I hate to say this, but to be responsible, right? Because
Right.
ultimately, the goal is for us to adult, and adulting is hard. Okay. I don't care what anybody says, even if you're at the highest level, the lowest level, adulting across all spectrums is hard. You might as well give yourself as much advantage while you're young so that when you have to adult, it's a little bit easier, a little bit more manageable. But at that time, I tell you, I answered the question. I got to college, did biology. I ended up having three minors because I wanted to be well rounded, because I felt like there were certain areas of my life that I needed to develop a little bit. So, psychology was one area that I wanted to learn because I love human behavior, understanding people, being able to be relatable, those types of things. So, I was like, you know what? This is an interest of mine. I'm paying for this education anyway. I'm spending this money. I might as well get something that I want out of it, right?
Right.
So I ended up getting a minor, and then the chemistry thing because I have a minor in chemistry as well. It was just an easier transition because of the biology. So I just was able to acquire that, take a few more classes, get that minor. And then religion was the other one, only because of my background. I come from a pretty conservative Christian background. We're Seventh Day Adventist, and it's like, you know, it's one thing to just be a part of a community, part of religion, but then it's another thing to be an active part, right? So there's the passive side, and then there's the active side.
Right.
And I'll tell you right now, and I can't make this up. It has been one of the greatest training grounds that I have ever experienced in my life. And as an adult, I see it now and I understand it. And I'm like, okay, uh we used to, as kids, we would have to like learn scripture and then have to like read it to people and even like your peers. It was training ground for public speaking, right? Like I see that now.
Mhm.
Right,
Yes.
I see it now, right?
Yes. Right.
um and then considering like just being principled, right? So principles over preferences, and then understanding that my principles are supposed to guide my preferences, right? And so it's things like that that really have been a game changer, especially in the world of business. And then, of course, just my ideology across the board, Judeo-Christian understanding, and that has been a game changer. But it's also been one of the reasons why I chose the health field.
Mm.
It's also one of the reasons why I said I want to impact people positively.
Mm.
Because in all reality, I could have gone into, and don't get me wrong, there are
Yeah.
ethical finance people and all that other stuff. I could have went to finance and just been like, look, man, I'm trying to get mine.
Yeah. Right. Right.
100%. And the truth is, It's everything that I'm doing in my life is to make sure that I'm an advocate for others, to make sure that I understand the needs of humanity and try to solve that need or be a problem solver, because ultimately that's our goal, right? To
Right.
be problem solvers. And when we do that, the return is so great, and which you think that that's crazy,
Yeah.
um, but at 5 years old, I'm not thinking about any of that stuff.
Right.
I'm just
Well,
thinking about the goal.
but what made you wanna? Because there's other things you could say:
Sure,
firefighter. You could have said, construction worker. You could have
sure.
said soccer player. You could say
hmm
politician. What made you say doctor? Like, what was it about being a doctor that excited you at that age?
Oh man, and I'm glad you asked that question. Uh, I can tell you that I come from a medical family.
Okay.
Okay. So, aunts, uncles, my mom, my dad. I'll tell you this. My dad. So my parents are Haitian immigrants. Okay, they've been here 50 plus years. Okay, like they've been here. The majority of their life has been spent here in the U.S.
Right.
And the thing is, my dad, his formal training is a lab tech, right?
Mm.
And so he was in the health industry in Haiti and that type of thing. My mom is a nurse, right? And so
Mhm.
she had that experience, that training, didn't transitioned out of nursing and went into public health, which, by the way, I again, these are things that you look at your parents, you're just like, oh yeah, they're living. You don't really, not that you don't care, is that
Right.
you're not really paying attention to what they got going on. You're just doing what you got to do.
Right.
Ultimately, I ended up getting a master's in public health, because I felt that as a healthcare leader, I wanted to, be well rounded and also impact people, on a different level, on a different scale. And so I added that master's to the resume. Now, now the thing is, and for clarification, um, I am actually not a medical doctor. I am a doctor of chiropractic, right?
Mm.
And so that's also something that I felt that if I can help people with quite literally my hands and tools to get people out of pain and get people to function at their highest potential, without the use of medication, or if we're partnering with other medical professions, to try to get them to their most optimal health. And so the goal there, especially from a physical perspective, is to make sure that they're living their best life, quite literally.
No, I
Um,
like that because when we first met, my first conversation with you
I
was
still
about
remember.
my left
I still
knee.
remember it. That's right. Patel. May I say it? May I say what it was?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, because that's HIPAA, right?
Yeah,
So yeah. So I remember that you had a patellofemoral syndrome.
right. Correct. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that was probably like 8, 9 years
Ye-
ago.
Yeah, no, it's much better now. What
Yeah.
happened is I was doing deadlift squats, running, and not resting enough. And
Yeah.
yeah, I ended up with a injury that was very debilitating in the sense of I stopped
hmm
being able to run properly. I stopped
Correct.
lifting. And the initial recommendation was to just stop and not do anything about it. And I was like, this is not going to work for me. So
hmm
I started doing my little research that I could, and I found out that okay, you can nurse that tendon back to health and
Absolutely.
develop it, and then now you have to go down these iterations of like, okay, well, it got injured because of overuse, but is the overuse because you're being overzealous, or is it because you have a biomechanical issue or
hmm
imbalance in your muscular structure? And then I started going down those iterations, and I found out, yeah, there was imbalances in my leg strength. My hamstrings were way weaker than my quads. I wasn't training in a way that would balance out that stress. So that's one.
hmm
Two, I wasn't getting enough sleep, which is super important. I
Oh
wasn't
man,
resting
let's
long
not even
enough.
get there.
Right.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
but please continue.
But yeah, after going down those iterations, and I I ended up having to go to 'cause I couldn't solve it myself, and that's when you know you need a good PT. And that PT that I ended up
Hmm.
going to was the person was a chiropractor also, but they did soft tissue work,
Yep.
and realigned me, straightened me out, did the soft tissue work, and I'm telling you that knee is better than my next knee. Like strength wise, now I'm doing jujitsu. That's not even my issues anymore.
Oh, nice.
I'm able to jog. I'm able to run. I did a 5K the other day, no issues. Able to lift. And typically, the trajectory of someone with the type of injury that I had is they keep going, they keep re-injuring the tendon,
Yep.
and then eventually it erodes to a point where you got to do surgery, right?
Correct.
And so that's usually
Or
the
worse. Or
or
worse.
worse, right? So now having professionals who understand the physical body, and your physical body also implements and ties into your mind, your mindset. That's why part of the
Hmm.
podcast is that having an athletic mindset where skill
Mm.
development is your highest priority. The development
Hmm.
of skill develops value, so you're able to execute at the highest level like an athlete. That's why we love sports. You're seeing people
Oh
who
yeah.
dream, plan, and execute, and they're executing, and they're in their flow state at the highest professional goal that they sought out to do. But it
Hmm.
took work, and we aspire to work as well as they do, even though it's
Hmm.
not, maybe not in basketball. It could be in medicine. It could be as a project manager, whatever the case is. That's the reason why we see them and we respect the hard work, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Can I,
To that
can I
point,
Can I
yeah, go
can I
ahead.
say this as well? Part of the reason why we love sports so much is because it's a finite. It's finite,
Right,
right? So you've got a small window of opportunity to make it happen.
right,
And once that window is closed, that's it. There's no going back.
right,
You can do it recreationally,
right.
but ultimately, no, that thing is done, and it's one of the reasons why you see a lot of athletes when they're done because they've put everything. And I mean, the ones who succeed at the highest level, they
Yep.
go into depression.
Yep.
They lose themselves because what has happened is from the time they picked up the ball or they picked up the racket or picked
Hmm.
up those clubs, whatever it is, that has been their identity.
Hmm.
And that's one of the things that I try to help people separate, especially my young mentees.
Hmm.
I tell them, make sure that you understand that your profession is a part of who you are, but it is not who you are.
Right.
Okay, so
Right.
I say that I'm Dr. Valbrun, but here's the thing: the doctor title does not provide me with value. Okay, and I coach myself and I tell myself, just because you got the title don't mean nothing. Okay, that
Mm.
just means that you did something a while back. But if I don't do anything with it, right, it's just that I've accomplished a certain feat and I've moved on,
Right.
right? So now it's what am I doing with that, and how do I define it so that when I encounter people and when I'm speaking with individuals, do I remain knowledgeable of what I've learned? Because really the whole point is to be an expert in my field. To continuously learn, right? So you got to be a perpetual student, a voracious reader, and all of that is part of the workout, right?
Right.
So we talk about the physical workout. The mental workout, believe it or not, is a physical activity.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
I mean,
100%.
think about it like this: the best time to work out, okay, and this is across the board, right? So how about this? I might as well give game, right? I might as well
Right.
I might as well share some info. Best time to work out is in the morning, right? Okay, anybody can research that, right? Consider this though. When you work out late at night, okay,
Hmm.
like before bed, it messes with your sleep,
Right.
right? Now, the thing is, some people just don't have time, which means that you would have to then wake up earlier. And I'll tell you this, I'm a morning person, and we talked about this just before. I have an on and off button, okay? So
Right.
when I go to sleep, and for those of you who have insomnia and struggle with getting sleep, I'm terribly sorry. I'm going to say this, but I could literally put my head on the pillow and I will be gone.
Right.
There's no. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
my wife uh, detests and despises me for it because she's like, I don't know how you do it, but the moment I hit that pillow, I'm gone. And so, but the thing is, working out late at night, okay, while your body gets the endorphins, it gets all, you're not going to be able to necessarily max out your ability, right?
Hmm.
You're not, and then consider this. If it's messing with your circadian rhythm, right? So
Yeah.
you're waking up, you're going to sleep, and all these other things. So now you're looking at hormonal changes within the body that you don't necessarily want to alter. You when it's that nighttime, you want to go to sleep. Okay, they call it the graveyard shift for a reason. For those who work overnight, they call it the graveyard shift because, man, people who work that shift struggle and it affects your health.
Health.
Okay. I mean, this is just now, once in a while, no big deal. Okay. I'm not gonna be an absolutist.
Right.
But at the same time, you got to consider how it affects your body. Because the thing is, you want to dream, right? You got to get sleep,
Right.
right? You want to
The
plan, you got to
interesting
wake up.
interesting part of what you said is that, and I've been doing some reading on it, that the way you sleep or the
Hmm.
way your sleep is affected also ties into dementia. It all ties into Alzheimer's. So like
Hmm.
most people who are like a precursor to Alzheimer's is that the person wasn't getting fully rested sleep.
Oh
and
man.
and so it causes but damage in the brain to the point where over time it can
Hmm.
cause Alzheimer's and can cause dementia. So like uh, as a kid, you don't really pay attention to how important sleep is because you just want to be up
Hmm.
and having fun. But
Of course.
the older I get, I can
Ah, you
definitely
feeling
feel
it
the
now?
difference. I can feel the difference between when I was 25 and now 33.
Oh
And
yeah.
feel the difference of a day when I get good sleep and that
Yeah.
night when I didn't get good sleep and how it affects your decision making. 'Cause as you
Yeah.
get older,
Huh.
your decision making
Yeah.
requirements is a lot more important, right? Because you're a
Hands
leader
down.
in your field, right? And people are coming to you to make a decision, and you can't not be sharp because you didn't get enough sleep. It's not just
Mhm.
becoming unprofessional. You got to take care
Yeah.
of yourself so you can take care of others, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. But
no.
here's the other thing too, right? So uh we're talking that mental endurance, right?
Hmm.
We're talking that physical endurance, and think about it like this: when we consider the dream, plan, and execute model, right? In order to dream, like I was saying this before, really you should be sleep. You should be asleep. You should be in a
Right.
sleep state, right? So for example, MLK said, I have a dream, right?
Yeah.
He's seeing something that perhaps does not yet exist, or he's formulating that thought that's in the mind. And so the thing is, you've got to strengthen the mind. So I'm not sure. I know it's one of our presidents. I'm not sure if it was Woodrow Wilson or Henry Hudson. I'm not sure which one, but it said that not. It said that not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers,
Right.
right? All leaders are readers. And the thing is, I tell people all the time, leadership, the definition of leadership, and you can see this through John Maxwell and many others,
Mhm.
definition of leadership is influence, right? So
Yep.
as leaders, how do we influence, and how do we influence positively? Well,
Right.
one of the things that we got to do is we have to be influenced. And so, how can we get all this information and gather all this stuff? You got to put that stuff in the mind. So, reading every day even I don't care how tired you are, if
Right.
that's something you got to do in the morning, even if you're listening to podcasts such as this one, you got to exercise the mind, exercise the thought, because what happens, believe it or not, is it allows you to have a level of focus that goes beyond your peers, and now you start to separate yourself from others because of the information and knowledge that you're trying to take in. But the thing is, you've got to be intentional about that. And you can try to learn by osmosis, right?
Right.
You could try, but I can guarantee you that if you want to execute, right? So hold on. So you want to plan? Let's go to the plan.
Right.
The plan portion is you also got to have a, well, I'll say this: I have a strategic plan for myself.
Right.
All right. Which, you know, that strategic plan is okay, what am I going to accomplish throughout, let's say, the year, right? Because I know some people have New Year's resolutions. I'm not a big fan of that. I believe it's from birthday to birthday because that's when your year actually starts, right? Because anyway, so you know, I do that, and I'm like, okay, 6 months down the line, okay, what have I accomplished? Okay, how can I reset? What are my new priorities based on the things that are going on, right? So I've got to have a strategic plan for myself, and then also if you run a business and all these other things, it's got to be business, but it's got, and I hate to say this, but it's got to be work on you first, because if you're the owner of a business, and I know some people who are great stewards,
Right.
okay, of other people's businesses, their own businesses, those kinds of things. But then in their life is a complete and utter mess, right?
Right.
Like, no, like, how is it that you can plan for everybody else, but then yourself you're neglecting? It can't be that way, because when we get better, right? What happens is everything else builds from there. So that's part of the planning process to make sure that
Right.
that gets done. Then that execute portion. Oh man, here's the thing. I'll tell you, the hardest thing is getting started, right? The hardest thing is getting started, especially I'll say this, after the age of like 30, right about where you're at, 33 to 35.
Yep.
After that, there are certain things that you just don't want to have to change. You're trying to focus in on efficiency at this
Yep.
point. And to change something out of that system, to change something out of your mindset, means that I gotta deviate from what I've already been doing. And now here's the thing: if you're not really doing too much, it might not be that much of a change. But if you got a whole lot of other responsibilities, and you're telling me that I got to do this other thing now, we're gonna have a whole problem.
We have a real problem. We have a
Okay.
real problem. Because here's the thing too, like when it comes to executing, like the reason why you dream and you plan is so that it makes your execution a lot easier, right? And it
Mm-hmm.
makes your execution, and that you're not putting resources to things that don't make sense to put resources to, right?
Mm.
You're not going
Mm.
down because everything is finite. You don't have unlimited
Sure.
resources. You don't have unlimited time
Oh,
or money, right? So
whoa. Can I pause you? Can I pause you with the unlimited resources? Can I
right.
pause you with that for just a
Yeah,
second?
of course.
Matter of fact, I think that the resources, not time,
Right.
not time, but I think resources are unlimited. And
Mm,
and the reason why I say, other than time, time is not you'll never get that back.
right.
However, you can compound that time with the things that you're doing by, if you have your own business, you compound that time by employment,
Right.
right? So what you do is, so now you have force multipliers in individuals, and so it allows you to then be able to scale if you're able to do that. And as you scale, you have to then find resources, find solutions to the problem. Consider this, right? You got, well, I think, I'm not sure, I'm not accurate of the number. I think it's like 6 point something billion people across the world. Okay. And then you've got individuals who live in poverty, right?
Right.
So while, consider, if you're now employing individuals who may be impoverished, and you're providing them with a source of income. I'm not saying that it's an easy task. I'm
Mhm.
saying that it's solving a problem for them. It's also solving a problem for you if you're selling a product, and then also just being able to understand that we are in a global economy. We're in a global society. So you may have to think outside of your microcosm, right? And go somewhere else in order to maximize the things that you're trying to accomplish. And so and a lot of businesses really that are at the highest level, like your Amazons, right? Or even like Apple, those a lot of those companies, that's what they've been doing. I'm not saying that it's always, and I'm not going to say that they're unethical because I don't know their business like that, right? But the goal is to be as ethical as possible while getting as many of those resources as possible, because I believe that that is untapped. I think that that is quite literally a resource. People are a resource that continues to grow and grow and grow, and you can then maximize that. But time, the only way to increase that time, the only way to maximize your time is through others.
Yeah, no, it's the leveraging of resources, right?
Yep.
That gives you that force multiplier, right? So
Hmm.
just being in management, your ability to manage resources, manage
Sure.
how things are done, and being able to not have to execute on the nitty gritty details of
Hmm.
everything, and
Sure.
and delegate some of it gives you that scale, right?
That's it.
Awesome. Same thing in investment, like being a part of the stock market, being able to buy portion of a company over time. You can see it. The thing is,
Hmm.
compounding, the activity of compounding occurs
Hmm.
not just in investment. It occurs in the activities you do in your life, right? So
Absolutely.
you can
100%.
compound negatively, you can compound
Hmm.
positively. And my intent always is to create a positive, what they consider a Pareto distribution, right? So
Hmm.
Pareto distribution or 80-20 rule basically says
Oh,
there's
yes.
two things you're doing, there are two things or 20% of the things that you're doing that will give you 80% of the return you're looking for. So I'm
Hmm.
always looking for what out of the 10 things that I need to do, what are the two things that I could be doing right now that will give me 80% of what I'm looking for, right? And you focus on those 20% all the time, you start making a spread between yourself and the goals that you're trying to get to, and the things that you move up. It moves slow at first, but then there's this moment where things start, aligning and momentum start building, but it's slow at first. And most people don't get the compounding
Hmm.
hockey puck or that swing to the upside because they kind of get off task or self sabotage
Hmm.
before they get to that moment where it clicks, right? And that click also
Hmm.
happens negatively. If you're doing negative things all the time consistently, then all of a sudden you feel like things are like piling in on you. It's because you've been
Yep.
compounding negative actions for a considerable amount of time, and now it's swinging to the downside, right? So I'm
Hmm.
always figuring, all right, what is the thing I can do right now that will allow me to swing to the upside? It may not
Hmm.
happen right now, but it'll happen in the future. And then, people might think it's luck, but it's your intentional hard work. And that word you said earlier, intentional,
Oh, yeah.
very important because there are two persons
Absolutely.
can go to a gym and they could run on the treadmill, and one person is progressing faster than the next
Hmm.
just based on when they're running on the treadmill. One is
Sure.
focusing on not because I'm tired, but like, is my stride length the best? Is my breathing or my cadence while I'm running on the treadmill? Is my
Hmm.
form best? When they come off the treadmill, they're focused on watching and learning about how to run properly. Is my technique in running better working? And they could have the same time right now for the
Sure.
next 2 or 3 months, but give it a year, give it two
Hmm.
years, it's going to be a drastic difference between someone who's not being intentional with technique and skill development and someone who's just going to just go, right?
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
And so I wanted
Yeah.
to touch on that topic of like moving from surviving to thriving, because I feel like they're,
Oh,
in
man.
the first part of your life, you're starting to like try and survive. But I think it's
Mm-hmm.
a different energy switch. You have to move from surviving to thriving in your life. And
Yep.
so, how did you go about like recognize the difference, and like how do you go about executing into thriving in your life?
Yeah. Um, Understand that that one resource is finite, which is time.
Hmm.
Understanding that, and the time is short, which means that you don't know when you're gonna go, right?
Right.
So today's the day. Today's the day
It's the
where you
day.
got to get it done, not tomorrow. I'll put it off to tomorrow. Look, the critical things you got to do today. The cosmetic things you can leave that for another time, right? Unless it's a critical thing. And what I when I say that, I tell leaders, look, you got to understand the difference between critical changes and cosmetic changes. Cosmetic changes are things that people see. Oh, it's nice. Ooh, you made a change. My goodness. But the critical change, right? But the critical changes are the things that nobody sees, right?
Mm,
And so if you really want to thrive, you gotta be doing stuff when nobody sees it. And I use the tenets of the 4Ds for myself. It's a theme that I came up with years ago. You got to be dedicated
mm,
to your own survival and to the survival of others, to those who are under your care.
right.
And so that there's the dedication. It's the determination, right? You got to be determined, like, to see the thing through and understand when to pivot, right?
Mm,
Understand when, okay, this might not be working right now for X, Y, and Z reasons, but you got to understand why. You don't just give it up.
right.
Because the beginning part of anything, all right, when you're trying to do something new, the beginning part of anything is the hardest part, right? Like, our bodies are trained, designed for efficiency. If
Right.
you don't walk at all, and then all of a sudden you think, I'm gonna go do 10 miles, it's not gonna happen. Or you might be able to do it, but the pain of tomorrow is gonna
Right.
be, oh, okay, all right. So, so then you gotta have discipline, right? I've heard this plenty of different places, but the best form of loving yourself and loving others is self-discipline. Because I tell you this, we're both married, right? If we weren't disciplined, right, every other person would be an option, right?
Right.
But
Right.
when we make that commitment, or at least, when we have made those vows to say, this is what I'm doing, I'm quite literally, okay,
Mhm.
closing the door off of everyone else to
Right.
say that I am now committed and tethered to this person,
Yes.
and I'm going to do my darnest. I'm going to do my absolute best. I'm going to double down on you and me so that we can be successful. And when you have that relentless pursuit, right, of said thing, it allows you then to be focused on, okay, how can we get better? How can we do this thing and expand from there? So you've got to be disciplined, and discipline is the hardest thing, man.
Yep.
When you're studying something, they call it a discipline,
Yep.
because quite literally, nobody likes to be disciplined. Okay, I'm telling you, kids don't like to be. Adults definitely don't like to be disciplined.
Yep.
Okay. But then the thing is, when we do it to ourselves, when we discipline ourselves and strengthen ourselves, guess what? It starts to you start going to the next level much faster than everybody else. And one great example of that, and I'm gonna say hard work, right? Because that's where that discipline comes in. Kobe is, and we're back to the athletics, right? We
Hmm.
understand, like, Kobe, what Kobe was able to do, and why we love him so much, okay, is that perhaps, and I'm gonna say perhaps, he was not as talented as everybody else. Now, everybody might be coming at me like, Kobe wasn't talented. That's not what I said. Perhaps he was not as talented in certain areas, let me say that,
Yeah.
as other basketball players. But one thing that you would not outdo him is outwork him. He was disciplined. He would wake up quite literally. I think he had a three workout schedule where he'd be up at 4 a.m. Not up at 4 a.m. I'm sorry. He'd be training at 4 a.m. Okay. Then he would train again throughout the day. And then he would train again later on in the day. And the thing is, by the time his other teammates would come to practice, he had already done at least two, maybe even three trainings. So consider that.
Makes a
He,
difference.
he just and then if you have the physical, now consider this. If you are consistent with making sure that you are developing
Right.
and you have the talent, can't nobody touch you.
Well,
Can't nobody touch you.
that's why I love Kobe. Like I love LeBron, I love Jordan, but the reason why I
Mhm.
love Kobe, he's one of the few athletes that actually explain in
In
chronological
depth.
detail of
Yes.
what it takes to get to the
Yes.
level that he got to. And
Yes.
he's honest about, like, when he was younger, he wasn't like the gold star recruit.
Nope.
There are other persons who are bigger, stronger than him. And he
Hmm.
decided, like, okay, well, I can drive. They can only drive right. At some point, if you just double down on just being able to drive right and someone boxes you out and you can't drive left, it's going to be a problem. So he
Yep.
started working on driving left, driving right, learning how
Hmm.
to pivot, learning how to pass the ball, and
Yep.
just
Learning
double
how to shoot left-handed. So if something
learn
happened to his right hand, he could kill you with his
with his
left.
left hand, and spin on both sides, right? And then once, an initial output of him learning these things, your game kind of takes a dip because you're
Correct.
learning a new skill while you're
Hmm.
trying to still keep up with the persons you're playing with. But at
Hmm.
some point, because you recognize this is also what he recognized, I need more time on the court develop
Hmm.
skills. And human beings in general, we overestimate what we can do in a year, and we underestimate what we can do in 5 years, right?
Come on. Come
So,
on. Come
so
on.
he's like,
Ooh, that's a whole word right there.
he's like, all right. Kobe's always thinking in 5, 10 year increments. He's like, all right, I'm gonna get beat up for a year, but what happens in 5 years when we get to college? And I can shoot on the left, I can spin, and I can pivot. All of these
Hmm.
things start blending together, and then time has already passed. And think about it, if they're only working out one time for the day, right?
Yep.
And there's 365 days. Now think about him doing it 3 times a day.
Come on.
Basically, in one year, he's done 3 years of their work already
Correct.
in one year. What
Correct.
happens in 5 years? You can't catch it. You can't catch the
Can't.
person.
There's correct. And here's the thing, and that's the thing about talent, right? So
Right.
talent just means that you have ability. It's just God given. You're just natural, right?
Hmm.
And the thing is, so many of us rely on talent to get us through, right?
Right.
So many of us, like for example, even like charisma, and I'm gonna shout out this one book. I don't really like shouting out like the different books, but I'm gonna shout this one out.
Hmm.
The Charisma Myth.
Hmm.
And I believe it's Dr. Olivia Fox, I think it is, or Olivia Fox or something like that. But nonetheless, some people are born with it. That charisma. You just
Right.
got it. And so, in my study of leadership, right? Because even with Kobe and even Jordan and all these other, just understanding leadership and ability, it was like, well, what are some of the factors? And charisma is one of those factors. Some people are just born with it; they just
Right.
got it, But to then study it, right? To study the workouts that Kobe was doing, to study the principles as to why he would do it that way, understanding what you're capable of and adjusting it so that it works for you, then you apply, and then that's the quite literally the execution. But the
Yep.
thing is that planning phase and what people really don't understand, and this is where Kobe was sitting there, and this, you just explained it. He literally sat there and said, well, if I just do this, I'm going to be three times better than everybody else.
100%.
I'm going to shrink that time down. But it takes planning And the planning process should be the longest process. The planning process should be the hardest process. The planning process is where, and I hate to say this, but some dreams go to die. Like,
But
you
yeah,
know?
you don't want to allocate, like I said, time into something that don't make sense. That's why you strategically plan, because you could
Correct.
there's so much things you can get into, but you don't have the time in the day. Because remember, while you're going through these goals, like things are
Mhm.
gonna pop up that is
For
gonna
sure.
be trying to pull time away from you from doing it. If you
Hmm.
got 10 of these things going on, like you can't. It's not like you tried to be a doctor and then also went and tried to be a professional boxer, right? Like you going to
I
be a
mean, I know people
professional.
who do it, and
I
it's
know
wild.
it's wild, but like it's very few persons can allocate being time. But and even when they did it, they kind of focused on one intently first, and then they
Hmm.
really went into the next one after. And like Bruce Lee or had a saying like once you've mastered one way, you've mastered always, in the sense of like
Mm.
the skills you learn how to learn. Like you learn how to
Right.
execute, you learn
Right.
how to get things done. So then at that
Correct.
point, because you've delved into something so intently, like for you, you can play an instrument. I'm sure when you
Yeah.
started playing
Yes.
the sax, you sound terrible, but then you started developing the skill. You
Sure.
realize that skill development takes time. You
Yes.
develop up to a point, and then you had to showcase that skill in front of an audience, right?
Hmm. Oh
Deal with
yeah.
the,
Oh yeah.
deal with the cold sweats of like your fingers getting
Yeah.
clammy,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
throat feeling dry,
Come on,
right?
somebody.
And to know once
You
you've
speaking my reality.
right, I know you, and then talk about repetition. I'm sure you have to do it every week
Over.
and over to the point where now
Hmm.
you can enter flow state, which is like
Mm.
you could wake up in the morning, brush your teeth, put on a shirt, go out, and you could just do it. You could do
Do
it
it.
in your sleep. The person could wake you up. You can do it now. It feels just like we. I think people in general, like we forgot how hard it was to learn how to walk. Like learning how to walk was difficult to us as a kid. Learning is difficult. That's why it's called growing pains, right? Like
Mm.
it does
Hmm.
hurt. There's no way around. Like I'm doing jujitsu right now, right?
Oh yeah. I know you are hurting.
I'm, and there are
Injuries
people
all the
there.
time.
And not only just
Grappling.
injuries, but just the
Yeah.
you're dealing with people who are like I'm doing it as a hobbyist. There are people who are doing this professionally.
Professionally. Yeah.
This is what they
Yeah.
do,
And
right?
you're in there with them.
You're in the doghouse with them. You're in that doghouse
Yeah.
with them, and you feel the difference because like I'm focused on what I need to focus on, but this is
Hmm.
their focus. They're training 2 times a day, 7 days a week. I'm doing 3 days a week. There's going to be a difference in their execution, right? And you can
Hands down.
feel the difference on the mat with someone who is like, this is what they do, right? And
Yes.
so that's what Kobe had. And Kobe just recognized, like, yeah, I do 3 times, do this for 5 years. They can't catch me. They won't be able to catch
Never.
me at that point.
The bag will be so deep.
The,
And the other thing too is, they say love what you do, right? It's kind of
Mhm.
hard to love something that you kind of have to do.
Right,
You know what I'm saying? Like it is difficult to do that. And then the other thing too is the thing that you may love to do
hmm
may not be able to generate the funds that you needed to generate, right? So you got to keep it a buck, right?
Yep.
And the thing there is, um, even if you don't like doing that thing, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, obviously, we're talking about ethics and being ethical and doing that thing, right?
Right,
It's you got to be good at practice, right? And I'm talking about like be willing to go the extra mile, be willing to do just a little extra.
right,
And I say a little extra, that's at the beginning, because that little extra spills over. And what happens is you then become more efficient and ultimately the body and you wonder why old people get stiff, right?
right,
It's not because they haven't been working on flexibility. Most people haven't actually,
right,
but the thing is, it's because the body wants to be so effective and efficient in its movements, because it wants to prevent you from falling, because the fall risk might mean death, and
Right.
so it's trying to preserve itself.
Right.
It's things like that, and so it's how do we get to a point where and I'll end with this one because this literally hits it on the head. It's deeper connection, right? So you got to have dedication, determination, discipline, and deeper connection. And how do you stay connected? Well, that might be in your ideology, right?
Mm.
For me, it's to do everything to the highest level, is to honor God, right? So that means
Mm.
that whatever I touch, whatever I do, I got to do it to the best of my abilities. So when I'm playing an instrument, right, I'm in love with the music anyway, but now I want to do it to the best of my ability as far as my talent will take me.
Right.
And you know what the funny thing is, when we look at it that way, when we do those things, it pays dividends.
Right.
Because the thing is, we don't invest without looking for a return. Right? That's the whole purpose of
Yes.
investing. Some people got a 401k. They're like, even if it's taxable later on, they want to know that their money's going to increase, that
Right.
it's being matched somewhere. It's, you don't buy rental property just to be like, I'm good. I don't need it to return. No, people purchase homes, whatever, so that there's a return on investment.
Right.
And that is ultimately what it is. So I ended up becoming a doctor in this field. My return on investment is not the financial or the financial return really. The goal is I want to be able to help this community. The community that I'm in, are they better because I was there,
Right.
right? That's
Right.
ultimately, and then the other thing too is in train because I'm a clinical educator, so I'm also teaching students, right? So when they come through, I've got to make sure that they go from whatever level they were, and I try to shorten the distance from novice to rookie,
Right.
right? Or novice to professional. I'm
Right.
trying to shorten that distance because I don't want to put them out in the world without them having a considerable amount of information and experience that can then also transform the lives of others. So the thing is, the things that I may not necessarily see in their practice later on, some of those principles are staying with them,
Right.
and it's impacting others. So now it's a continual, it's a perpetual development, right? And so that's one of the reasons why it's important to have that deeper connection.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be connected to what you're doing so
Mm-hmm.
that even if you're not in love with it, but you're so connected that it's almost and for some of you this might be a little aging out, but it's almost like you're stepping away from the matrix,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you see everything for what it is. You see how everything is so intertwined, and it allows you then to learn more and learn at a much deeper pace. And I'll say this in terms of learning. There's two people in this. Well, there's multiple people, but two that I'll highlight. One of them is that young kid who is relentless in his pursuit. The
Right.
younger you are, the more neuroplastic your brain is, which means that it hasn't fully formed those pathways yet. Okay, but once those pathways are strong and set and ready to go, I mean, it doesn't matter. Somebody who is in their 40s or 50s, they'll never catch you.
Right.
It'll just never happen. And I'm
Yes.
talking about just establishing the pathways. It's one of the reasons why for kids you don't want to expose them to the negativities of life
Mm-hmm.
so much because you don't want those pathways to be strong. But at the same time, you want to expose them to anything that could potentially benefit them in life.
Mm-hmm.
Because once those pathways are there, they're there. And that association then begins to form later on in life when they say, oh, I can do this, I can do that. And people are like, how are you able to do all these things? And people think that it's a genetic thing or you just have talent. No, sometimes it's the exposure. And that's one of the reasons, even now in my profession, I said that 5 years old back in the day, right? I had seen it. I had seen it in the home. I had seen it
Right.
with my aunts and uncles. I got like 4 or 5 aunts and uncles just on my mom's side
Right.
that quite literally are doctors and a bunch of them nurses. And so I come from a generally healthcare family,
Right.
right? Which is going to shape my view of life. And so it really does make a difference to start early. The next person
Hmm.
is that I know everybody knows who Colonel Sanders is,
Right.
good old KFC, right?
Right.
Well, you realize that he didn't start KFC until he was probably, I think he was in his 80s. Uh,
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was
I,
up there.
he
Not
was
like
he was
the 80s, probably 60s, but yeah, he was up there in
nah,
age.
nah, he was definitely older than his
Up, yeah.
60s for certain. And the thing is, what it does is it lets our seasoned veterans, right, our seasoned individuals, that look, you keep pushing on, you keep pursuing, you pursue until the end. Okay, you pursue until your number is called, right? And the thing is, if you don't have that level of pursuit, what happens is life begins to degrade. Life begins to uh, degenerate, as some people would say. And the thing is, you've got to have that purpose that allows you to stay passionate, that allows you then to continue the pursuit. And when those things are all aligned, it then gives you a third or fourth or even fifth wind in your own life. And
Yep.
it helps you then to redefine, because my retirees, right? Some people, they retire, they're like, thank God, I'm done with this. I got money coming in. I just want to stay home and do nothing. And you know what? They die in a year or two.
Right.
It's the ones that are okay. Let me advocate on behalf of others because they understand that their own life
Hmm.
matters, so that the life of others can also matter, right? So there's that. There are those who are willing to then let me create something because I have the creative mind and I still
Right.
want to create. I still want to be important in this life,
Right.
right? So the thing is, when we are in that state, and you're talking about that flow state, when we are in that creative mind, that creative, that continuity, for me and my beliefs, I look at it like this. You have a creator who causes me to be creative, and I have to then be creative till the end, right? Because that is part of what keeps me alive. That is part of what keeps me thriving, as we were talking about earlier.
Yep.
And then at the same time, it is what allows me to have a deep connection to what it is that I'm doing.
No, that right there is that's a bar. That is a bar beyond bars. Because here's the thing, like a couple of things I want to highlight. You talked about your passion might not be something that is financially viable, right? So the
Sure.
interesting thing is that I wish, like when we were in high school or even
Hmm.
earlier, we learned this
Uh,
framework. And I always highlight it because it's just
hmm.
to the point and it's very exact, right? So
Hmm.
Ikigai, so it's a Japanese
Yeah.
philosophy, and it talks about four intersecting circles, right? The
Yes,
four
sir.
intersecting circles starts with your passion, what you're good at, right?
Yep.
What you love doing, what the world needs, and
Hmm.
also what you can get paid for,
Come
right?
on.
And when those four circles interlock, the middle of that is your ikigai. That's your life's work, your life's purpose. So
Hmm.
if it gives you three out of the four, it's not ikigai, right?
Right.
So you literally know in your planning process, I'm
Yeah.
doing this. I'm not really good at it, and
Hmm.
I'm not really passionate at it, but it pays. Not ikigai. Rule it out. You have to like it. You have
Right.
to be fairly good at it, but you still need to work at it to get better, right? It
Yep.
has to pay you, and the world needs to want it or needs a reason for it, right? And
Sure.
so, being a doctor
Hmm.
aligns with your ikigai for
For
somebody
sure.
else because
Hands
it
down.
hits all those four things, right? Um,
Hmm.
for other persons, for me, it's being in construction. Like my family,
Yeah.
in general, they're either in the finance role,
Hmm.
or they're teachers, right?
Yeah.
And for me, people like why you. my high school produces the most, or one of the few high schools in Jamaica that produce the most medical doctors, right? That's what everyone went to school for. And I was like, no, I want to do
Okay.
construction management. I want to do construction. So I took
Sure.
technical, everything I took in high school, I use it to this day.
Man,
Technical,
that's a blessing.
I know, because we got
What?
to choose our subjects in ninth grade, right? Like they kind of, the earlier you can figure out what you want to do with your life is the
Yeah.
more runway
Oh,
you
yeah.
have
Hands
to,
down.
work through it. Same thing with Kobe. He was doing 3 practices a day, but imagine if you started earlier, right? And
Yep.
you made it in your mind at 5 that this is what I'm going after, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of runway to practice at that, right? And I
Yep.
can tell the difference with someone who has an early start and a late start. You see it in
Mm-hmm.
jiu-jitsu, like these kids that are growing up right now, things
Oh,
that I
man.
have to force myself to learn, they do it
Yeah.
naturally. It's
Yep.
effortless. So you have no this new generation of jiu-jitsu athletes that the things they do on the mat, no one's ever seen them do it because they're
Ever.
my baseline is what they've learned when they were 6. So now it's
Mm-hmm.
the next level that this person can bring it to, and they're like 19 or 20.
Right.
So they have at least 15 years of experience on the mat.
Come. Oh, man, I don't want to deter you from your point,
Yeah,
but you realize that an overnight success
right.
takes about 10 years.
100%.
Overnight success takes about 10 years.
Yep.
And the thing is, you might see a 3-year-old starting
Mhm.
to learn piano and they might be terrible at it, right?
Right.
Next couple years, they're pretty good. Next couple years, they're really good.
Yep.
Then about, you get to that 10-year mark, and if they're consistent and
Yep.
they love doing the thing, I mean, they're on a level that people will never reach. It's
Most
just, it's
black belts, it takes them 10 years to get your black belt.
it
It's like
takes
an
about
average.
10 years.
Takes about 10 years, 100%.
Yes.
You go to any jiu-jitsu gym and they're like, what's the average time it takes someone to move from complete beginner to going for grading for their black belt? It's 10 years.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like, and people can do it in shorter, but the average is 10. So the
10.
earlier you can start your 10 is the
Right.
earlier you can finish with your getting there. So if you started at 3, 10 years on top of that, you could be there at 13, 15. You start at 20, next is 30. You start at 30, it's 40. You can't, it's very hard for someone to cut into that time unless you're
Yep.
putting more hours on the mat than the average
Right.
person is doing. Then you can
Right.
cut it in half. If you're going
Right.
2 or 3 times a day for 6 days a week, you can cut that time frame from 10 to now 5 years.
No, it's
But
true.
yeah,
It's
so
true. And I'll give you a personal example,
mhm,
right? So I've been playing the bass now and it's crazy when I say this. I started when I was 23. Okay,
mhm,
and of course I had played sax from the time I was about like 7.
right,
And I was actually pretty good as a sax player, but the environment that I was in, it helped me to get to a certain level. Of course, discipline is a whole nother is a whole nother thing, right?
right,
Staying to it. Now, I had a deep connection to it. I just wasn't disciplined, right?
right,
So my limitation was there. So I was never going to be, a John Coltrane or a Michael Brecker or guys who were like top saxophonists
right.
because I just didn't have the discipline, but I was connected to it, right? So you've
Mhm,
got to have that balance. But then when I picked up the bass and at 23 I was more mature and I
mhm,
said, I want to get good at this fast, right? But I don't have the time. So it wasn't going to happen. And
right.
it literally took, and the thing is, I was spending at least an hour a day, right? At that 365, right? I literally would spend an hour at minimum a day. I would come home from work. I would practice at night. Everybody's knocked out. I would at least, I'm like, I got to touch the instrument at least, right?
Yeah.
And I tell you, I won't tell you how old I am now, but I'll tell you, I'll tell you this, that it took the 10 years for me to get to really feel comfortable to be like, yeah, I'm okay, I'm getting there.
Right.
And let me just say this. On the back half of that other 10 years, right? It's like now it's like that like I said, you're kind of removed from the matrix. You feel like you're in that free flowing,
Yeah.
that
Flow
flowing
state.
state.
Yep.
And it's like that when you get there, you you feel great.
A
I
hundred
mean, you feel
percent.
great. But then you also understand that there's more to learn, and then you start to learn at a much different rate than you were before. So one of the things is stick to itiveness.
Hmm.
You know, people don't like to stick to things. People don't like to commit, right? So you gotta be committed, and you gotta be consistent.
Yep.
You know, and you got to be those things, because ultimately, you do that, and it just takes you to another level.
Yeah, it
So,
pulls that dog out of you. So it's interesting for me. You said about neural networks and how that
hmm
development early shapes your thinking. For me, that was
hmm
tennis. So when I started
oh
tennis,
yeah, oh man, we gotta
I
play some tennis,
never.
man.
Yeah, yeah, I played. Yeah, we could really.
No, we gotta get together.
Yeah, a
Oh
hundred
man.
percent. So when I started tennis, it wasn't a passion for me at first. My mom
hmm
literally bought the racket and gave it to me. You're going to the class. She just didn't want me as her only child running around playing um, soccer and getting kicked and dropping on the floor and
Sure.
getting cut up. So she's like, here's a tennis racket. And I didn't
Yeah.
like the sport at first, right? Like
Okay.
I was a short, fat kid that couldn't get to the balls at all, and the coach didn't pull any slack on me. He gave me the
Can I
balls.
pause you for a second,
What's up?
Ramon? I don't know. I haven't seen those baby pictures. I haven't seen those young pictures.
Yeah,
With the physique you got going on now, brother, I don't believe you at all.
I got evidence. I got video and picture evidence. But yeah, I was a short, fat kid, man. I was short, fat, couldn't get to the balls. Yeah, it was painful at first. But what I did is after every session, I would play against the wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would just play against the wall. Eventually, it became a challenge to me. Like, no, I'm not about to be embarrassed out here, not trying, can't get to the ball. So I just
Right.
started playing against the wall. And I also started doing that not only after the actual tennis session,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did that at break when everyone else was playing
hmm
marbles or eating lunch. I was playing tennis.
Yeah.
After school, back on
Yeah.
the tennis court. On
Yeah.
weekends, back at the tennis court.
My
And
man.
eventually, I started to get to the balls, right?
Yeah.
Then eventually I started losing weight. But
Yep.
what happened in that loss of weight is that I was much stronger than most kids because I was already carrying weight. So I already kept my strength from when I was bigger. But now I'm
Mm-hmm.
bigger. No, I'm lighter, but I'm still stronger. So my serve was ridiculous, right? My
Yeah.
forehand, the power on the balls going back to people, it was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting to the balls. Now everybody's laugh start becoming admiration.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, no, this is different. Like, no, I remember when he was the short, fat kid. Now he's
Yeah.
getting to the balls. No, he
Not
became
anymore.
not anymore. No, I became tennis captain.
Mm.
No, you're captain of the team. No, the coach and you. I play. We had like the general session with the kids who are just coming because their parents force them to do it. And
Sure.
then we had our session after that where it's just me and him playing for hours
Mm-hmm.
until lights off on the
Yep.
weekend. He's driving me home. We're going to tournaments. Now I
Yeah.
become national tennis champion at sixth grade.
Are y'all hearing this, everybody?
Then after that, I get the principal awards in well, at that time primary school before we step up to secondary, which is high school. Because not
hmm
only did I pass for a very good high school, but I also was national champion that year. So
hmm
not only is the academics doing well, right, at the
Right.
time, also on top of that, you're also doing well athletically. Like you're also
hmm
out representing the school at the highest level and winning, right?
Right.
And
Right.
now the difference now is like it's not the sharp fat kid anymore. It's a tennis captain who's also doing well in school, right? So
Right.
that switch, the moment I recognized that, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. This is what you need to do to win. You need to practice at a
Yeah.
level that most people are just not willing to practice at. Because people came to tennis, but no
Yeah.
one's no one's practicing at lunchtime, right? No one's
Mm-mm.
practicing after school. They're only coming to the one-off sessions that they
Yeah.
have once or two times of the week. No one's practicing to the point where lights down. That's why you stop playing. No one's
Yeah.
practicing on the weekend when they should be out having fun with other friends. And
Yeah.
that level of determination
Come on.
got to a point where literally no one could beat me at school. There was
Yeah.
just it's just the people who were either a little bit ahead of me because they didn't have on as much weight or they
Yep.
were more naturally talented.
Yep.
At that point, it was just you can't win. It's just
No.
I have so much time and effort put into this task that you just can't keep up unless you're
You
going to really,
just can't.
make the sacrifice to practice the way I was practicing. So
Right. Right. And you know what? The reason and going back to the the reason why we love sports so much,
yeah,
it's not per se for the entertainment portion. It's almost because like you're seeing the culmination of hard work.
100%.
Right? You're seeing somebody perform. It's like when you see somebody being able to dominate, it's not that you really like, I don't care that you're dominating somebody else. Okay.
Right.
Like it's that some individuals are trying to dominate themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna subdue myself.
Right.
I'm going to allow myself to get to this point, and then now you're just seeing it on display. Um, and all this hard work, you're seeing it on display.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this. I have a fire chief. Matter of fact, I just met with the fire chief on Friday, just a few days ago.
Right.
And the thing is, uh, he's been in service almost 40 plus years as a working in fire, anything, right?
Right.
And so he was a firefighter before for about 30 years, and then transitioned and is now fire chief and has been fire chief for quite some time. Now the thing is, uh, you could see his energy, his passion. I was there with some youth.
Right.
Uh, he said, "Look, I only have a high school degree." Okay. He said, I came on as a firefighter, uh, with a high school degree. And the thing is, I worked hard. And I realized that working hard was quite literally one of the formulas, if not the greatest formula
Yep.
for success. And then
100%.
he said, and this is what got to me, and I started getting hyped once he started going there. I was like, my energy level just went up because now I'm excited. And he's like, you know, there are individuals who have master's degrees. That means they've gone through college, they've gotten their masters,
Yep.
and the thing is, and yeah, they're in roles like I am in that too. And had I had gone that route, it probably would have been easier for me to, or faster. I probably would have got there faster. He
Yes.
said, but nonetheless, I was willing to outwork. And he said, okay, you're committed to 60 hours. I'm committed to 80. You're committed to 80. I'm committed to 120.
Right.
And he said he literally, and you could see it. And the man is fit. I mean, the man is fit. He's got a family. He's
Yep.
he's he's like, and one of the things that he dropped a gem. He said, my dad, I realized that my dad worked hard, and he worked so hard in his life, and he would say, I work hard so you don't have to,
Mm.
which good intentions,
Yes.
good intentions, right? But what he realized right around the age of like 28, 29 is what I believe. He said, no, I've got to work harder than him to get to places that he's never been.
Been agreed. Agreed.
I then have to work harder so that, or at least even working smarter, if that's how you feel about the
Yeah.
situation, to then try to leverage situations and leverage my knowledge and leverage my experience
Right.
so that I can then catapult to a different place. Because it is hard to go up the mountain, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is this, to get to the absolute tippity top of the mountain,
Mm-hmm.
is extremely difficult because the thing is to get through those parts of the mountain, okay, whether it's your education journey, whether it's work or whatever,
Right.
that middle part of the mountain is most everybody. You're
Right.
gonna get past that fairly easy.
Right.
When you're at the top, though, oxygen is limited now. Okay, energy is limited now.
Yep.
All right, you're exposed to all of the elements,
Yep.
which means that you got to have the right kind of gear, you got to have the right support, you got to have the right everything.
Yep.
Okay? And you got to have the gumption to win. Now, I'm not saying that to cut somebody else down, because then, in my opinion, you'd be a horrible human being to do
Right.
that. Okay? All right.
Right. Right. Right. Right.
However, I'm saying this, that in that top space, the competition is fierce. There's less space, but the competition, those who are there with you
Mhm.
in that space, the competition is fierce.
Yeah,
So
I
then,
love that analogy because that
yeah.
happens a lot with even with these, like, just think of jujitsu or just any
Mm-hmm.
martial art endeavor. Your white belt, most people start and stop. They don't even get to like a blue belt, right?
100%.
Right? They start. It's hard because everyone's beating you up. Everyone's like just throwing you all over the place, right?
You're the bag. You're the
You're the
bag, right? You're
bag,
the
you're the
punching
beat,
bag.
and like you're trying to formulate how to even survive. If anybody tells you what a white belt is surviving, right? A blue
Mm-hmm.
belt is you've learned how to survive, and you're now being able to dominate white belts, right? But when you
Mm-hmm.
get to your blue belt, there are white belts who are gunning for you because they get their promotion by being able to really give you the work, right? So now
Aha.
so now there's a different level of stress on you because as a white belt, you're free to go after things that, if you get caught, no one's going to say you're a white belt. No one cares, right? But now
Nobody
you got to
cares.
care a little bit more as a blue belt because if you get careless with a white belt coming in strong and heavy, it's
You gonna get.
embarrassing that he's subbing you. No, so you're like,
Mhm.
no, the pressure builds, right? And now your tournaments get harder because you're not fighting people who are novice. You have people
Right.
who have two years of experience who's training just as hard as you. Purple belt, you know what you're doing.
Right.
Like you've built a game, you've figured it out.
Right.
These guys are just as good, lot less room for error because you make a
Mm-hmm.
mistake, the person is taking you down. Brown belt, it's more about your timing and you're able to
Mm-hmm.
consistently on a bad day, even if you're sick,
Mm-hmm.
beat a purple and a blue belt. At the black belt level, you're an elite roller at this point, right?
Yeah.
Elite. There's no room for error. There's no room for mistakes with these guys. And if you do make a mistake, you gotta
You're
fix
gonna pay for it.
you have to fix it real quick.
Yeah.
But the difference between a black belt and a white belt, like that person can literally beat them with one hand if they're, really feeling like doing it. They really could because just the level of altitude between white and black, that's 10 years of on mat experience, probably the minimum of 4 times a week.
Oof.
Like how do you keep up with that, right? Like so
Yeah.
that right there, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
that pinnacle, like
Yeah.
even at the pinnacle there's work to be done
Oh
because
my goodness.
to become a world champion now black belt, think about it,
Oh
you have 10 years of experience on the mat already and you go to
yeah.
the world games, everybody there is already
Oof.
past that threshold of the 10 years. Now you're dealing
Yeah.
with the best of the best,
Yeah.
fighting amongst the best of the best to see who's number one, right?
Man,
Like
you got me hyped, man. Yeah.
that.
And the funny thing is about that too.
Yeah,
Sometimes, so like it based on rankings, right?
right.
Right. So like you might be placed, but here's the thing: your skill might match better with somebody else's deficiency,
Yep,
right? Like,
100%.
right?
Yeah,
But you never face that person,
yep,
which means that you gotta be well-rounded across the board, because if you face that person and
yep,
okay, I got him here,
yeah,
but that other person's coming for you too,
yep,
and they're looking at you like I got them there. And
yep,
so the thing is, either A, your strengths have to be overwhelmingly strong,
yep.
or you've got to be extremely well balanced.
Balanced.
you know.
Yep.
And the thing is, those who are well balanced and have strengths that are overwhelmingly strong, God
Everywhere.
help us all.
You have in jiu-jitsu, you have gi and no gi, right? Gi is the formal Japanese wear
Hmm.
that people usually see. No gi is just pants and shirt, right? And
Hmm.
the number one person for the last 10 years is Gordon Ryan, right? And Gordon is strong everywhere. He's strong because like you have people who are very good on top, meaning like
Hmm.
adding pressure, going after the submissions from top. You have people who are good at bottom, but if you put them on top, they're not that great. You have people who are good
Hmm.
at leg locks, but they're not good at
Mm.
anything else. He's good at everything.
Hmm.
So it makes his game very dangerous because if you're good on top, he'll just play bottom and beat you from there. If you put him on bottom, he doesn't have a problem being there. You can see people having difficulty who are used to playing top when they're on the bottom, they start panicking because like you said, you could develop your skill through the ranks from white
Yep.
belt all the way up to black belt where you're so good on top that no one could really expose that you're not that great on bottom, right? Because you're just such a
Hmm.
dominant force on top. Then you meet someone who can expose that you can't play on the bottom, but you're at such a high level now for you to you have to spend the next 4 or 5 years developing your bottom game now because you're now executing at the highest level. And no,
Sure.
that really makes a difference between the person who got to the highest level and can be the best at the highest level. Because no, that person has a deficiency of skill that no, they're
Yeah.
gonna have to try and fix no at this vantage point, which is hard. That's what happened
Hmm.
with Deontay as a boxer. Like he had such good power and he was just
Yeah.
murking people for such a long time that no,
Yeah.
you get to the highest level and you have someone like Usyk who learned every portion of boxing, learning how to
Right.
fight going forward, learning how to fight going backwards, learning how to do good defense. And
Yep.
when you look at these professional fighters, Deontay started when he was 19. These persons who are winning and beating him now, they started when they were 6 and they have 300 amateur fights. You can't
Bro, that's
make up.
crazy.
You can't make that up. You know.
No, and that's the other thing too. And even with talking with the police chief,
Right.
right? Experience matters. And this is one of the things that really irks me. It really bothers me.
Mm.
Um, uh, with our business system in general, right? They tell you get a college degree.
Right.
You get a college degree. So you now, I want you to understand, you have paid to get a job.
Right.
Like you understand, like so then they're like, oh, you need a master's degree. So then you are now paying to have access to that job. And
Right.
that's what people don't realize. Like you're paying it. But the thing is, it's a pay me now, pay me later situation everywhere in life.
Right.
And even with those guys who have been training, they decide to pay it forward, right? In order to be able to do what they need to do. But the point that I was getting at is if you are willing to pay whatever price, whatever sacrifice to then be able to have access to whatever it is you're trying to get to, uh,
Right.
do it sooner rather than later. But if you have to do it later, regardless,
Pay the
pay
price.
the price.
Yep. I literally believe it's called, to me, it's like the law of sacrifice. Like you
Yeah.
must sacrifice something to get to where you're trying to go, right? Like it's a sacrifice of time,
Hmm.
it's a sacrifice of effort. Like, and so
Hmm.
there's a book called Grit, which
Oh yeah. Oh
and I
yeah.
love Grit because
I think it's Angela Duckworth is.
yep, 100%. And that
Yep.
right there is, to me, if I had to find a book to
Hmm.
like give someone like, here, read this and you'll get it,
Yeah.
is great because one
Oh man, you
thing.
want to talk books? We-
We'll be here the whole day if we start talking about books.
oh man.
But
I
that
mean,
book in itself is like
yeah.
I mean, there's so much books that I
For
love
sure, for sure, for sure. But
that
you got,
has
yeah.
influenced me in a way that I'm like, I can't go back. You can't. So Warren Buffett always said, and Charlie Munger always said that, you
Hmm.
know, a mentor doesn't have to be someone that you've met,
Correct,
right?
correct.
You can have dead mentors, right?
Absolutely.
Because you read their stories and you get it after reading their story. A couple of
Hmm.
things that come to mind for me is I'm thinking of someone like Alexander the Great, right? So now
Mm,
people see Alexander, and I mean, I'm not here talking about the conquering aspect of what he did,
sure,
right? I
sure.
was more focused on the execution aspect of what he did, right? So
Hmm.
Alexander by 25 had maybe control under his grasp the known world, right?
Sure.
But and Alexander, dad was a very good general. He was an excellent general at that, right?
Hmm.
He's not like Alexander came into his own with his dad's army. His dad had
Come
an
on, man.
army already. And
Yeah.
so Alexander just brought it to a different level than his dad ever could even
You
imagine.
scale that thing.
He scaled that to a
Come
different
on, man.
level. Not to mention Alexander, even with that resource, how is it that he had the mindset and the developed skill at the age of 20 to lead grown men into battle? Well, if you know anything about Alexander, his mentor, different than his dad,
Hmm.
was one of the greatest philosophers ever. It was Aristotle. So
Yeah, yeah,
imagine
yeah.
being
Aristotle.
15 years old and you have one of the greatest philosophers in the world. Today we still talk about Aristotle. He's the
Come on, man.
grandfather or the father of engineering, mathematics, formally, right?
Hmm.
That we consider him. And then you also have the resources, your dad, who's already been a general with an army already set up. And so talking to generational aptitude, same thing with JP Morgan. His dad was a banker. He was a good banker. He was a
Yeah.
solid banker. Steph Curry, his dad was a good shooter. He was an
No,
excellent
no, no,
shooter.
no. Hold on. Whoa,
He
whoa,
was
whoa, whoa,
decent. He was
whoa.
decent. He was
No,
decent.
no, no. He was a very good shooter.
Good
No,
shooter. Yeah.
hold on. Del Curry?
Yeah. He
No,
was
Del
good.
Curry could shoot now.
But and Del Curry could shoot, but then Steph Curry came in and brought it to
A whole nother. I mean,
a
he's the
completely
best
different.
shooter. Here's the thing. He is quite literally, and to the point that you're making,
Yeah,
greatest shooter of all time by NBA standards in the
100%.
basketball world, right?
Right.
Right? Because but then consider this though. Consider this. Their gifts are different. You look at most people would never consider Steph Curry to have some of the greatest handles, but that brother's handles is off the
It's
chart.
ridiculous. A
You
hundred
see what I'm
percent.
saying? And just general ability. So to maximize ability
Yeah.
means that your environment that it goes back to sometimes you just got to put them in the environment. You look at Serena and Venus. I mean,
Yep.
you've seen the movie King Richard,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
You know, you literally got to throw them into the environment so that they can then be that. But there
Yep.
has to be a singular focus. There has to be a goal that is bigger than yourself. There has
Yep.
to be a vision that is something that is going to outlast you. Even if you lived 100 years, it's got
Yep.
to outlast you. And you look at guys like Alexander the Great. Yeah, their ego might have been on off the chart.
100%.
Okay, because I mean,
Right.
to think that you're going to conquer the world, like,
Well, yeah.
come on, man.
Right.
But he died trying, literally. And the
Yep.
thing is, and it's the
Yep.
culmination of having all these things together and then showing that execution. Oh my goodness.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
You have the resources, and then you have, and that's what, to me, like, with it's sad that like in one or two generations the wealth that the
Hmm.
first generation create can
Yeah.
end up just going to waste. But
Hmm.
part of, like, to me as a parenting, and I'm not a parent yet, but I
Sure.
always think of what does it take to
Hmm.
parent well, right? And
Yeah.
I'm thinking of coaching. Like, you're a coach right now, you coach people, and
Yep.
there's a difference between, to me, like, when a coach gets on you, you know they're getting on you because they want you to be the best version of yourself, right?
For
And
sure.
And parenting to me is coaching. It's mentoring
Mm-hmm.
and coaching. Like, and
Ooh.
I find sometimes when we were growing up as or parents, or Caribbean parents, or parents in general, they give you one word like just go school, right? Or
They don't
just do this,
explain.
right?
Right.
But the difference between that style of parenting and a coach is a
Yeah.
coach literally, let's huddle up. We need to talk about this. And they
Right.
aspire, they inspire you. Listen, we're going after this championship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look to your left, look to your right. These are the guys who are going to be in the trenches with you, right?
Yeah.
Anyone who's played football or played a sport, was a team sport with a coach,
Come on,
till this day, they still miss those days. Why? Because
bro.
you were aspiring to this goal that was like, they may be better than us right now, but they're not going to be
Hmm.
better than us in 2 years. It's time to
Yeah.
train. That's why people galvanize behind the Colorado coach,
Oh,
right?
wait, hold on. You talking about my man Deion Sanders?
That's why they galvanize
Oh,
behind
I don't
Dion.
know him, but that's
Yeah,
my guy.
that's your. Come
But
on, don't be.
here's the thing. I've been rolling. Let me tell you.
Yeah,
I'll say my age now. I'll say it
yeah.
now. So so I'll be 42
Right.
this year. So I'm 41. And I tell you, I've been rolling with Deion Sanders since I can remember, and that was
Mm,
'88.
right.
Okay, all right, and I mean, I was what, 6 at that point, and
Right.
I'm telling you, like, for whatever reason, and that's part of that charisma. I mean, clearly he was born with it, and he
Yes.
maximized the talent that he has.
Yep.
But then beyond that, you look at the measure of the man. You look at the character. Character speaks volumes,
Mm,
right? And you look at his character. Now, I'm not saying he's a perfect person. None of
right.
us are.
Right.
However, you can see that he's passionate.
Yes.
Here's the thing. He wants to win, but he wants to win with a team that is willing to do the work. He
Yes.
wants to win and he wants to bring people along. He wants to win and he wants to change the systems that are there to benefit the players, to benefit those who are under his care. And the
Yes.
thing is, if you're thinking about yourself and yourself alone, oh, I want to make it to the top. I just want to feel this, that, and the other. Man, go kick rocks.
Right.
Because that's it. Because
100%.
matter of fact, go kick big boulders in Boulder, Colorado.
Right. No,
Okay.
I love his mindset because, like, not
Yeah.
only has he executed at the highest level, obviously, right? I mean,
Sure.
Dion was a two-sport athlete, right? And was
Yeah.
fairly good, and one of the best
World
part
Series.
World
He
Series,
he
like,
been to a World Series. They didn't win, but
right?
he's also a Super Bowl champion. Considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest,
Yes.
corner of all time.
Yep.
I think he might have a little bit of a challenge in
Right.
Darrell Reeves because Darrell Reeves for a
Yeah.
time was just on another
Yeah.
level.
Darrell Reeves is a dog. We
I
can't.
mean, just
That, that boy.
but still.
Yeah.
But still, nothing compares to Dion. You
And it.
go somewhere and you try. So I know. I'm sorry, man. You got me
Yeah,
excited for
no, no,
just a
no.
second.
Good, good.
So I want you to consider this. You take all of your cachet.
Right.
That's what you've done over the years.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you've built. Or if you have a family legacy, right? You take that cachet that has already been built and you then leverage relationships, all of
Yep.
those things,
Yep.
so that you can take everything you're doing to the next level. Because if you're just taking yourself to the next level and you're not taking everything else to the next level with you,
Yeah.
for what? Just to say that I got mine?
Yeah.
No, it has to be a communal effort. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes even in that communal effort, you have to be able to identify who should be on your bus and who you shouldn't. So like we're talking good to great. So we were talking about books, right? So
Right.
good to great,
I
you got
love
to
that.
have the right people on your bus. But
Yep.
even then, having the right pavement also matters. Having a bus that can do all terrain also matters. So the way it is developed also matters so that you can then take it to the next level. I'm sorry, go ahead, man.
No, 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 no. I'm just saying you just said exactly what I was gonna say, which is like just making sure that you have the right people on the bus. He did that
Hmm.
by he's like he came to Colorado and it's like, listen, you guys haven't been winning. If you want to
Yeah.
here's the transfer portal. And he's
Yep.
like, the kids got scared because I said that you're not supposed to be here because I want somebody who's going to be like, I hear that and go, no, I'm not leaving. I'm going to
Yeah,
prove
I
to
am one
you
of the best,
that I am here
and
to
I'm
work.
gonna show you.
So he showed him the door, and if he stepped through the door, he's like, I didn't force him through the door. I just showed him the door. And you wanted to run because I'm about to put on the pace and we're going to work hard. You're not supposed to be here.
I
You're not
mean, think
supposed
about
to.
it. They were 1-11.
Yes.
That's not
One,
good.
that's not good.
1-11. Here's
I know.
here's what 1-11 means. Okay, because you're telling me that you won one game. I don't care how
Yes.
good or how bad you are. Every dog has his day.
Right.
So you only had one day where you were victorious? No.
Right.
That's a discipline issue.
Yes.
That is a what we do every day issue. That is a
Yes.
mindset issue. Because I
Yes.
tell you this, I know some people who they just ain't got it. Okay,
Right.
but when they're on, they give you what their 100% is. Okay,
Mhm.
and you're gonna catch somebody slipping. So to think that you're not gonna win a game or you just won a game
Right.
out of 11, no, you could have easily won 3 or 4. And the thing is, what he showed them is that he had immediate success. We know the towards the end of the season it was a little bit more of a
It's
struggle,
here.
but
Right.
but but in the end, this is what I love about it. It's okay, we're going to make transitions. I've identified now, after having this first year, I've identified certain things, but the one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on. And if you're gonna be here with me, I'm gonna make sure that your status is elevated so people can see you,
See
because
you.
in the end, that's the goal.
Yeah.
So you talked about parenthood. Look, I'm still what you would consider a rookie parent
Right.
because I got to date I have an 11-month-year-old. She'll be a year in like a couple weeks,
Right.
and which is a great experience. Look, I love it. At the same
Right.
time, it's if I'm not a certain way, or if I'm not doing certain things to explain, or if I'm not behaving a certain way, or if I haven't constructed things a certain way, what happens is monkey see, monkey do. So if I'm not doing those things, or at least I'm not showing or explaining why those things need to happen, then I can't expect a completely different outcome than what they're seeing at home, because
Right.
environment matters, right? And
Yep.
so even helping them, helping somebody understand good sportsmanship, because that's what we're talking about in terms of coaching, right?
Right.
Good sportsmanship also means the regulation of self. So for the jujitsu master who's ranked number one,
Yeah.
he has all the physical tools. He
Yeah.
may even have emotional tools. But in the end, he is trying now to conquer, he's trying to conquer himself to be better than himself. And how do you do that? Well, you have to have an emotional center now.
Hmm.
You have to have clear guiding principles that will empower you to be better at the next level. Same thing for parenthood. Same thing for if you're married. Same concepts in business.
Is
It's if you are not that like your emotional self really matters at that point, because you could be the best at that thing and you're in that flow state, but if you're not emotionally solid, it kills the flow state, right? Because
100%.
what we know, what we 100% know without a shadow of a doubt, is that life has a way of humbling everybody.
Everybody.
Whether
Everybody.
it's the loss of a parent, whether it's the
Yes.
loss of a child,
Yes.
you could the industry, because the internet has changed everything. The industry might have been gone, right, overnight. I'm talking about overnight.
Overnight. Yep.
You got to close your doors. All these different things, and now you have to redefine the things that you do. And this is one of the reasons why I say what your work should not necessarily be who you are. It's a part of who you are, but it should not
Right.
be who you are. Because
Yes.
if that's gone, there's got to be more to you than just that. And there is.
100%. So it's
And
funny
so,
you say that because, like, So Eli Durkheim, which they
Yep.
consider the father of
Yep.
sociology, right?
So yeah.
He identified in his study of, in France when they were going through the Industrial Revolution, that
Oh
suicide rate
yes.
went up, right? And it
For
went up
sure.
drastically.
Yep.
And it was that move and that shift from a religious-based society to just it's on you to figure out your financial means, and that's all. That's the focus, right?
Hmm.
At that point, a lot of men, because most of the times men are the ones that commit suicide 9 times out of 10. It's men
And are successful.
and
And are successful.
successful.
Yeah.
Uh, it was a loss of purpose outside of work that caused that,
Yep.
because the community that church brings, different than the spiritual healing, is also the community that you have, right?
Sure.
And that role that you play in your church or you play in your community, that really gives you life past just the financial means. You could,
For
you're
sure.
helping, you're seeing yourself in a young person, you're seeing their struggle, and you're willing to make a sacrifice to help them, and they're gaining something from your knowledge. But not, truth be told, you're also gaining something from them too. You're also gaining
100%.
the ability to give back, and the
Hmm.
ultimate. What happens when you get to that point? A lot of philanthropic endeavors become, you ask 10 people what you would do with the money. I honestly, 7 out of 10 people would say that they would want to be in a position to give back, because it's something that we
I'm
yearn for
telling
in
you.
our soul, to want
Yes.
to give back and do
Yes.
for other people, right?
Yep.
It's just that, your financial means don't allow you to do it right now. But to me, I think even you don't have to give back financially. You can give back with wisdom. You can give back with
Yes.
surrender. You can give back with perspective, right? It's
Hmm.
not just a financial give back that's the only thing that matters, right?
Sure.
Until you get to the bag where you can give back financially, it doesn't mean that it ends with just financial. Like, your mentoring can happen outside
Hmm.
of your pockets, right?
Sure.
So that's one of
Yeah.
the things that I find, like yourself, myself, or someone else who you could take the job away
Mhm.
from. I,
Yeah.
it doesn't. The work in itself is something that I enjoy doing, but it
Hmm.
won't stop me from seeing someone who's has something that they want, and I know how to get there. I
Sure.
can assist you in it multiple ways. I'll give you an opportunity if you're willing to work for it. That to me is the I had it's so funny. I had a teacher. I was terrible at math in I would say eighth or ninth grade, right? At
Hmm.
some point, I just got this sticking point with math. It just wasn't clicking. And I
Hmm.
had a teacher, and I tell you, these moments in life change your trajectory, right?
Mm.
Saw it was me with my T square walking through school. He's like, everywhere I saw you, Ramon, you had the T square. I could see you had purpose. I could see in you that you wanted a lot more for yourself.
For
But you
sure.
have this sticking point with math. And the majority of the math teachers that I had, they were already very good at math as a kid. So they just couldn't
Mhm.
understand why you're not getting
Why are
this,
you
right?
struggling?
Why are you struggling? Like, this is how it's done. And this is a very frank, blunt, like, this is how you do it. I don't understand why you don't understand. But this math teacher was also very bad at math, right? And then became good at math. So
Sure.
the empathy behind his approach is
Yeah.
like, this is how I struggled.
Sure.
This is how I got past this. And so I'm like, so you're going after your PhD in math after being bad at math to prove that to that one person, that if you're
Yes.
bad at math, you can become really good at math because I'm
Sure.
doing it. That's how he's inspiring at that moment, right?
Yeah.
And so I would reach out to him after class, and he's like, listen, I'll spend 15 minutes with you after class to help you through this. But the one thing I ask of you, and you have to do it, or I'm not going to spend the time with you, you have
Hmm.
to try the problem, and not just try it in your head, like physically write it out, do it wrong, just get it out there, just get it off your chest. And the moment where you mess up is where I'm going to help you from. And that was his negotiation deal. I'll spend the 15 minutes in my lunchtime to help you, but you have to
100%.
do it. You got to do your part. You got to
Hey,
meet me
you,
halfway.
here's the thing. And you know what? What that was is you're paying for it in a
Right.
different way, right? You want access? do this. That's really what it boils down to. And you know what's crazy? So I wasn't actually good at math either.
Right.
Math was not my strong suit. And it wasn't until, believe it or not, it wasn't until I got to college that I realized something. I was
Mm.
like, math is not so much about me understanding the numbers, right?
Right.
It's really it's understanding the rules and how to be able to navigate within those rules, understand the principle, right? I
Right.
could get a problem wrong, right? But the thing is, it's solving problems. That's what it's about. It's,
Right.
can you solve a problem? A problem is now right here in front of you. You got to know the tools, you got to know the rules, you got to understand all these different things. Understand it so that you can figure it out, and then that way, through that figuring it out, allows you then to build again those neural pathways,
Pathways.
especially as a young person, to
Mm.
then figure out other things. It's really to exercise the mind. So when people say, "Oh, math is," well, I'm never going to use geometry,
Right.
trigonometry. I'm never going to use
Right.
algebra. The-
Yes.
but here's the thing: every day we're solving for X.
Yep. Yep. I love that
Okay.
you said that because like I tell young guys all the time, I'm like, yeah, I might not have used calculus or cal 2 or 3,
Right.
but the problem what it taught me, and that's why people love like when doctors go into business or someone from a heavy technical background goes into business,
Mm-hmm.
because you learn the skill of problem solving. And it's a
That's
skill.
it.
And so for me, that math and was going back, like I ended up, he told me this. He's like, you've been looking at the problem, but not actually putting pen to paper, thinking you know how to solve the problem. You got to do
Mm-hmm.
it. You're like, you could look at recipe books all you want, but until you start
So
cooking,
you,
you don't know how to
yep,
cook. So he's
yep,
like, you gotta do the problem. It's a doing thing. You gotta do it.
correct.
So the moment I got that in my head, and it tied into like, oh yeah, I remember this was like playing tennis. You couldn't just watch videos and playing tennis. You
Mm-hmm.
actually had to go play tennis and be
You have to
kind of
do
good.
it.
And so that tied into it. I ended up with a straight A profile in
There you
my
go.
exam from there, right? Then I did
Yeah,
Cape Math, which is 12 and 13th grade. But by the time I got to college,
yeah.
and I was in engineering school,
Yeah,
some of these kids were struggling with this. I've
yeah.
already had this struggle earlier already. I've dealt with this pain
Correct.
point already. So now I finished my math credits way earlier than I needed to, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't have gotten to that point if it wasn't this one moment, this one nugget of a 15-minute exercise with a math teacher that had a little bit of empathy for your pain point, and
Yeah,
gave you the framework to which
yeah.
you work in. Like, this is what you need to do and do it.
Yeah. Can we talk about pain for just a second? Because
Yeah.
you're talking about the pain point.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. In order to be efficient, right? You've got to go through various pain points. In order to, really execute, you've got to go through pain points. To have a dream, even, right? So, like, I'm trying to stick to that
Yeah.
dream plan, execute, right?
Yeah.
There has to be something that is triggering you to be that specific thing.
Yes.
So if you're concerned about pain, I'll tell you this. In my profession, uh,
Mm.
I hate to say it, but when I'm working on chronic pain issue individuals, you're talking about individuals who have years of issues, and they
Right.
want me to solve it. And some people, they want me to solve it without having them go through any pain, and I'm
Right.
like, that's close
Not
to impossible.
possible.
Like, it's not a reality. And the thing is, those who are willing to go through the process early and are consistent, even if it takes a year or two, okay, because their issue may be so far gone, there's a breaking point, right? They're willing to go through that painful process, okay? And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm getting better. I'm feeling more flexible. Oh my goodness, this is really changing. I'm starting to feel better for longer periods of time. Then
Hmm.
all of a sudden they're like, man, I'll see you in 6 months. And I'm like, that's what we were working toward.
That's a
But the
fact.
thing is, you get to various pain thresholds. Like working out is a great example of this.
Yep.
You don't stay at 10 pounds. And here's the thing: if you're gonna stay at 10 pounds, you're gonna stay at 10 pounds much longer, and you're gonna do more reps, right? But right, so it's purposeful, and
Yes.
then you're gonna get heavier weight, shorter period of time, longer period of time, whatever the case is, that meets your goal. But nonetheless, you're going to feel the pain if you go to another level, and
100%.
it stinks. Now the thing is, sometimes you got to embrace that pain point in order to just say, all right, I'm gonna just get through it. And I'll use myself as an example, with music. So there's something that I got to learn, and my brain doesn't want to learn that. My brain just wants to noodle and have a good time.
Right.
But to sit there and say, no, I've got to learn this. All right, I've got to put the metronome on, and I've got to do this for at least the next 30 minutes on this one specific task, and try to get it as right as possible. And and the thing is, it's tedious. It's
Yes.
tedious, and it's boring. After a while, it's just, I can't make this up. It's boring.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
But the thing is, once you start to feel it and you're to the point where now, and this has happened to me a couple times where I'm so tired and I'm practicing, I would literally fall asleep practicing, but my hands are still moving.
Mm. Yeah, because become building. It's building
It's
that.
built in.
It's built in. Yep.
And the thing is, I'm knocked out and I'm doing the thing
Yep.
and it's staying on time. I mean,
Mhm.
that's wild. And
Yep.
my wife has seen, she's like, you literally fell asleep, but like you were still doing the
Right.
thing. And I was just
100%.
like, I'm like, yeah, because I want to be, whether I'm sleeping, so that's the dream part, whether
Yes.
whether I'm up and I gotta get going, the plan part,
Yeah.
and then I'm doing the thing, the execute part.
Yeah.
Um, I want it to be in that consistent flow
Consistent.
state at all times, which means that I've got to do the work in order so that I can be at that point, because we all want to be our best selves.
I used to sleep with my tennis racket. I used to literally fall asleep with my tennis racket. And even if
Yep.
I couldn't get to the court, I would, similar how a boxer shadow box, I would
Mhm.
literally
Yeah.
go in the yard, practice it,
Visualize.
and visualize the ball coming across and
Oh yeah.
setting the shots up. Like I'm going left, I'm pushing him off the court. He's going to put
Mm-hmm.
it back here. He's going to bounce high. I'm going to jump. I'm going to finish it down the line, right? Like, and I
Sure.
would practice strategy. I'm going to serve hard down the pipe. He's going to have a soft return, and I'm going to come to the net and finish it. And so in game day time, like these are the things that are already going through. I've seen the opponent across,
Yes.
even though they're not even there. Like I'm already visualizing
Mm-hmm.
my cadence with my serve. I'm visualizing running around the backhand and
Mm-hmm.
finishing across court. I'm visualizing coming to the net and going after the ball. I'm visualizing running back and lobbing the ball back. And you're playing, you're running through so much iterations. Like even when
Mm-hmm.
I get to jiu-jitsu, like this, I just started, but they're like, yo, you move very well and you understand the sport. I was like, yeah, because I'm not just, even when I'm not at class, my mind is still at class.
Yes.
My mind is
Yes.
still working through iterations. My mind is still watching videos on break time to see how movement and the pattern of movement and how's the person approaching the way they go about, executing. And so
Mm-hmm.
now you're imitating those movements before it becomes part of you. That's what that kid does. They're imitating us walking before you can.
Sure.
No, we walk, we don't even think about walking. We can walk and be on the phone going up the step and not worry about it, right?
You don't even. It's not even a thought. You wonder, how did I get here?
You forget how much it's not until like, and I had a coworker who recently just did a knee replacement
Oh yeah.
and he had to, it's tough. It was very tough to
Mm-hmm.
get back. He's a disciplined guy. He was working out before and he's like, I had to relearn how to walk. I mean, you don't even
Yeah.
think about how much goes into walking until you're out from walking for like 6 months and then you have to go and relearn how to walk, right?
It's
Um,
tough.
it's tough. And I he much of course he's doing a knee replacement now. You're in age, right? But
Yeah.
he always, and I always included him in my meetings because he's like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to just be at home just thinking about this thing. I was like, well,
Mm-hmm.
listen, if you're okay with being at home, being in the meetings and hearing what we're talking about, so when you get back, you don't
You'll be
have
ready.
this,
Yeah.
you'll be right back. It's like you never left.
Yeah.
So every meeting I had, every time I'm talking with a trade, he's in the meeting. He's
Yeah.
contributing to the meeting. So he never felt like he left, right? He
Mm-hmm.
always, and there are moments when I had to go on vacation. And because he was already in the meetings and prepped and aware of what's going on, I
Mm-hmm.
can leave and it's taken care of because I don't have to bring somebody up to speed. He's already there. He's challenging me. I'm challenging him. We're building and working together, even though
Yeah.
he's home recovering from a knee injury because his mind is still in the
Yeah.
game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, but
So,
that's the beauty of continuity, even, right? And that's where, oh man, it's, when I think about things like that, and understanding how life shifts help us realize what we've already had.
right.
If you don't have that pain point, if you don't have those tough times,
Yes.
it doesn't allow you to really enjoy those really good times. You have a different appreciation for, that level of understanding. You have a different appreciation for even responsibility, which I define the ability to respond
Hmm.
appropriately. Right?
Right.
It's like
I
it's
like
you
that. I really like that. I'm gonna take that. That's great.
take that to the bank.
Yeah.
It's like it's things like that that allow for us to be our best selves,
Right.
and also to encourage others to also be their best selves.
Yes.
Because the person who truly wants to be successful in life understands compassion, understands empathy, understands that while those things are important, they're absolutely important. It's not to. I'm compassionate and empathetic enough to also let you go, because it's for the benefit of this organization,
Right.
right? Or the benefit of what we got going on, and even let's even say the circle, because that's a whole nother issue, right?
Right.
So understand also that people are in a consistent flow state of being in your life and out of your life as well. Because when you're trying to go to a certain place, when you have a clear vision for your own life,
Yeah.
people should think that you're crazy. Like, and I not crazy for the sake of being crazy, right? Like, oh, you
Right.
crazy, right? But consider this: years back, and I'm talking about years back. Uh, no one thought about an online store,
Right.
okay? Until you had the internet, and then all of a sudden people were like, yeah, there's online malls.
Right.
Online malls? I can just go to the mall. I don't
Right.
need it. No, and
Right.
then it gets to the point now where it's like most of us really do a good considerable amount of shopping online,
Right.
right? Transactions online. I don't even, at this point, I really don't, unless I have cash,
Yeah.
like
It
literally
hurts.
cash
You
on
know, it
hands.
hurts to go to the mall. You're like, I have
I
to
don't
spend
even really
all
need to go
day.
to the bank.
I
I don't
know.
even need to go to the bank.
I know.
Matter of fact, they to the point where a lot of these systems are so automated
Yeah.
that you have an automated teller machine. They
Right.
don't want you to even talk to the teller. They're
Right.
like, go outside, do your business, and get up out of here. And the thing is, it caused us to lose certain things in terms of human interaction. 100%. There's
Right.
no doubt about that, and you can see that in generations that this is the norm for them. They're losing
Right.
that interpersonal interaction.
Yes.
However, however, what it has done is it's made us wildly efficient, and that speaks volumes to a lot of everything that we've been talking about. Is
Yes.
how do we get to a place where we take that thought that idea, that inception, so to speak, right,
Yeah.
of an idea. We put that thing on paper, those goals that plan, and that's why I love that dream plan execute,
Execute.
right?
You're the first person when I announced it. You're like, Ramon, that right there is a bar
Man,
beyond bars. You're the first
yo,
person you reached out to me. You're like, brother, whatever came to your mind to say dream plan
huh?
execute. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it's point blank simple. I mean, and that's the thing. Simplicity. Oh man, let me tell you this. You can have complexity. Matter of fact, you can have complex systems,
Right.
but not everything is complex. And although there's complexity, doesn't mean that it's complex.
Right.
It's a bunch of microsystems that allow for the entire system to function appropriately.
Yep.
I mean, that's ultimately what it boils down to. When you break things down to its most basic form, it's pretty simple.
Right.
It's building on top of those things that allow us to have some level of sophistication so
Yes.
then we can then say, all right, look, for example, you're in construction, right?
Hmm.
The first thing everybody knows, and for the fool who doesn't know, you
Yes.
have to understand that you got to build a solid foundation.
100%. You're dead in the water if you don't. Dead. Dead.
The foundation has to be so solid that even if the building burns down and the foundation is still good, you can build right on top of that same foundation.
But the funny part about that is like when you build a high, super tall skyscraper, right?
Yeah,
Majority of your time is on foundation work. Honest to God, like when you're building, just when you're talking the superstructure, I'm not
yeah,
talking
yeah,
interior fit out, but just superstructure wise, you
yep,
can spend you could spend easily a year
yeah,
and a half doing foundation work, and
correct.
in 6 months you could have 20 stories because you're pouring, forming, pouring, forming, pouring, forming, but the
Yep,
foundation work and
that's
it's so a
everything.
lot of things that in construction or just in building, the activity of building is a verb.
Yes,
It's not just tied to construction.
right,
Construction gives you, it's an execution of that word building, but building
sure.
in general, the first part of the process of building is
Hmm.
slow and long. And then you get
Yes,
speed along the way. The speed
yep.
happens over time and the math keeps mathing.
Hmm.
I had on my whiteboard at work, I always had 1.01 raised to 365, right? Was
Mm.
37, which means if you
Yes,
grow 1% each day for 365 days, and that's math. That is math that I'm not, it equals
man,
37,
he's making me so happy.
37x.
Yeah,
37x just by being consistent each day for 365 days, right? Now, Kobe did that and he times it by three because he was
come.
doing it 3 times a day.
How much better you gonna be? And so here's the thing. So now because of my belief system and what I believe, I tell you this, man. Um, a lot of the principles that I find in the Bible, okay, like you
Yeah,
now the thing is whether you're a Christian believer or not, or you believe
right.
in Christ or not, whatever the case is,
Yeah.
you go in there and you're gonna find principles
Tools.
that or even sayings
Yep.
that you're gonna that help you see the stratosphere, help
Yeah.
you help you understand just in like business, finance, relationships with your family. What I'm talking about, you're talking about foundational work.
Yes.
And because the thing is, we want the foundation to be so deep. We want the foundation to be so strong that
Yes.
you can build three or four skyscrapers up. Because
Yeah.
here's the thing: I'm not an engineer. I'm I'm
Yes.
not in construction. I'll tell you this though. But what I do understand is that the deeper and stronger your foundation, the higher up you can build.
100%. That's trees. I mean, buildings are just an
And
example.
that's what I was gonna get to.
It's a
Right.
tree. It's a tree that is just man-made, right? Like you deep, a big tree
Yeah.
can't have a shallow foundation. You got to go deep. And then if you think about it, I have so Abby,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
wife.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Yep.
she
So
she
just for
gave me
full disclosure,
full
I
disclosure.
don't
I
know
said,
if y'all
Abby,
want to
is
put
this
this on the
cousin?
bloopers or whatever the case is. So Abigail or Abby, BB,
Yes,
we love
BB.
her. Okay, she is my cousin, and
So,
thereby Ramon is now my cousin. Okay,
cousin.
so I want y'all to understand it. And when I say he's family, he's family. Okay,
Yup,
the brother is family. He's in there like
yup,
swimwear. Okay,
yup.
that's so corny. Yeah, but no, but
That's funny.
no, but that's what I'm saying. So yeah,
She
but
gave
please
me
continue.
the Bible, like, but the Bible that she gave me was the
Hmm.
actual leadership Bible.
Oh yeah, 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 for sure.
And it's such an amazing book because not only is it giving you the spiritual aspect of
Hmm.
the Bible, but it's also pulling out of it in the same context the leadership tenets that these persons
Absolutely,
went through.
100%.
And it's such a tool like that I use all the time. I would even just put my finger in one. I just flip it to a random page in the Bible
Hmm.
and I read the scripture, but then also it's pulling out the leadership tenets that
Yes.
these kings. Because think about it. All of Old Testaments is talking. Well, not all of it, but a large majority of it is
Hmm.
the passing of the ark or kings going through the fights, King
Hmm.
James, judges, all of
Sure.
that. It's
Sure.
just times and time of a prophet coming, people moving away from God's word. The prophet
Hmm.
comes to bring the word back, but
Sure.
it's a slow erodation or eroding of
Yep.
principles that happen over time. The
Hmm.
idea that you were talking to about visionary leaders, just think
Yeah.
about, oh, no, building this ark. Everyone thinks he's crazy. Just think
Come on,
about,
man. 120 years. I mean, so we're talking now. If you don't believe this stuff, that's fine. But just consider, you're doing something for 120 years,
yeah,
and you're building something for 120 years, and people think you're crazy because it's never been done before.
yep,
It's never happened before.
yep. I give you a good example of that right now. Jensen is the CEO of Nvidia. Everyone's talking
Yep.
about Nvidia now, right?
Hmm.
Nvidia literally has a monopoly on AI because the GPU that they built, right,
Yep.
is the only thing that can really handle the computing horsepower that's needed for AI, right?
Correct,
Jensen worked at AMD when he was first. He was a
bro.
dishwasher. Let's talk about it. Nvidia is the most valuable company in the world right now. It
Right
just
now. Yep.
beat Microsoft last week, right? As the
Hmm.
most valuable company in the world, right? Jensen started off as a dishwasher at Dennis.
I love it.
After he went to
I love it.
electrical engineering, he ended up working at AMD and he had like, okay, AMD's working on these chips, but I have a vision of a faster, stronger chip that can also, the market wasn't built. There was no market for this. He has a vision that this is what I'm going to do. He
Right.
leaves this company, nice cushy job at AMD, and his boss was like, Jensen was such a good employee. He was so good at executing on his work, and he always talks to anything that I'm doing, I do it to the best of my ability, right?
Sure.
So when he was a dishwasher, he's like, I was the best dishwasher. My dishes were clean, it was
Yep.
organized, and when
Yep.
the guys needed it, he went down the rabbit hole as being a best dishwasher. Well,
Right.
that skill set he learned to go down that rabbit hole and execute at the highest level, he brought it to AMD. When
Yep.
he left AMD, I'm sure a ton of employees leave AMD all the
Sure.
time. His boss was so impressed with him that he actually helped him get funding for NVIDIA. He's like, I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know what he's
Believed
built,
in him.
but I know him as a person. And
Yeah.
whatever he puts his mind to, he executes at a level that I've never seen with any engineers that I've had before, right? He didn't even finish his business plan, and his boss was already in his corner. His former boss was already in his corner getting him funding. He
Yep.
gets the funding, and now he's building products that Dell, AMD, and Intel was like, we have no use for this. This is too powerful. There's too
That's
much
what you think.
resources. For 30 years, I mean, granted, in between that, he had smaller successes with gaming.
Sure.
Gaming was on the rise.
Of
Gaming
course.
needed computing
You
power
got to find
to
the niche that's going to get you paid.
get you paid. And you ride that niche for years. I've put NVIDIA chips in video game consoles or PCs for
Hmm.
years. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, no, I'm hurt. No, if I knew that I'm going to get to this, like, what are you going to, are we get to this point? What are you going to teach the kids that we didn't learn? I knew what I know now when I was putting chips in NVIDIA in
Invest.
computers, I would buy the stock. I would buy the stock. But in any case,
I tell you.
no,
Can I pause
Nvidia.
you for a second? Can I pause you
Yeah,
for a second? I, so kids love sneakers and stuff like that. I always tell the parent,
yeah,
when you do a one in one, when you
yeah,
buy the sneaker, buy the stock.
100%.
Okay, and the thing is, you might not believe in all that, but I'm telling you, just do it like
Just do
Nike.
it.
See, you saw what I did there, right?
Yeah, yep.
All right.
I was like, if I knew what I knew now, I would. If I'm before I buy the chip, I would buy the stock. But that's hindsight is 2020. In any case, Nvidia now the most valuable company. Now there's a market with AI. Now there's a monopoly on AI because he kept his vision very strong, which is
Yep.
I know there's a need for this. I'm going to keep doing it until the need is
Hmm.
apparent to the world.
That's right. The time is coming. Hmm.
And when it did come, if you look at Nvidia's stock chart is literally the example that we talk about, the hockey puck tape,
Hmm.
right? Like everyone thinks Nvidia came out, looks like an overnight sensation.
It's
It
not.
literally, it literally looks like it came out of nowhere. No, it was 30 years in the making of
Yeah.
somebody who's been diligent and hardworking and
Yep.
inspiring his team along the way for 30 years
Hmm.
without a blimp or a skewing of thought. Even though your market doesn't understand what you're trying to do, you
Yeah.
understand what you're trying to do. You're the
Oh
one
yeah.
who has the
That's
vision.
right. That's
You're the
right.
one that was blessed with that vision. And
Oh
he
man.
put the plan together and he
Yeah.
executed like an animal, right? Because even when they did his interview and they talked to his employees, they're like hardworking, hard at precision and quality
Yep.
control,
Yep.
right? Holds you to that level. So
Yep.
imagine holding everyone to that level for 30 years.
Come on, man. That's wild. Can
That's
I can I shift gears for
jump
like
in
two
there.
seconds?
Jump in
So
there.
so consider Netflix.
Very
Netflix quite literally revolutionized the entire video industry,
Yep.
movie industry, and it's still doing that today. Matter of fact, you try to see Paramount Plus, Apple TV. You're
Everybody
trying to see
follows.
everybody followed Netflix, and they're struggling because usually when you're first to
Yep.
that place and you're consistently maximizing that place, ain't nobody gonna catch you.
No one's gonna catch you.
Netflix is a behemoth, so much so, and if history serves me correctly, um, that same individual was working for Blockbuster, presented it to Blockbuster. They laughed him out of the building.
Yep.
And what happens? He takes that same idea and starts off by bringing you CDs in your own home,
Mm.
then streaming, then taking it to the next level. So
Yep.
anybody else who comes in that space is just you're second at this
But
point. And with it,
what
mhm.
you highlight there, what I really like is you remember we talked about the hockey puck going up
Yeah, yeah,
and that 1.01 raised to
yes, sir.
365 give you 37.
Hmm.
It goes the opposite way too. Like if I do
Oh yeah.
0.99, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah.
I do negative 365,
Yikes.
you're losing 1%
Yep.
each day. You can same thing with weight training. If you stay at the same weight and you don't increase the intensity, you don't increase
Mm.
that 1%, you actually
Hmm.
lose strength.
Lose.
You
Correct.
lose. You
Yes.
lose strength. So it's important that you never really stand still. It's either you're working a little bit up or you're working a little bit down, right?
Yep.
You may not see it at the moment because at the vantage point that you're at, it looks like a
Sure.
line,
Sure.
right? But if you zoom in on it, you zoom in on that line,
Yeah.
one of them have a slow trajectory up and one has a slow trajectory down. That
Correct.
happens with people's leg strength over time. When you
Hmm.
get to your 30s, you start slowly losing muscle
Oh
mass.
yes.
You start
Oh
slow, and
yes.
it's a slow creep. And before you were able to walk upstairs, no problem. Get out of small cars, no problem. You could get down, you could squat, you could pick stuff up. But
Mm-hmm.
because that became your baseline, if you don't
Yep.
do strength training
Yep.
above that
Above that,
baseline and
it'll
higher,
never. Yeah.
before you get to your 50s, you're wondering, like, I've been always been able
It
to
just
pick up
happened.
water. I was just doing it. But that atrophying,
That's
trying
right.
to take a hockey puck down,
Oh
and it's
yes.
fast and it's aggressive, and you're just like, I don't get it.
That drop off is real.
And
I'm
that
telling you.
drop off is real.
So from a physical perspective, right?
Yeah.
I tell my patients, you know, 35 to 45 is the breaking point. You got
Right.
10 years to figure it out. What how your body's going to feel
Mm.
beyond that. And so, it really does behoove us, and I say us across the board,
Right.
to be diligent in understanding where we are and where it is we're trying to go and what it is we need to do in order to be successful in this life.
And to that point, I have two more questions I want to ask you. One is tip one that you need if you were going to give your daughter any tip going into her 20s, going into the future, what tip would that be?
So, number one is, fear God. It's the beginning of wisdom,
Hmm.
and quite literally, you know, seek him first and all those things will be added unto you. That's just my ideology across the board.
Right.
And in that you've got to do it now. Right?
Right.
Because the thing is, tomorrow's not promised to you, so
Right.
do it now and then take it to the next level.
Right. And then the last one is
Yeah.
how can we find you? How can we connect with you? Uh,
All right, so
so
believe it or not, I'm actually fairly difficult to find.
fine.
I'm not difficult to find, but I'm fairly difficult to find. Online, I don't have anything like personal,
Mhm.
like the Facebook, YouTube, all those things.
Mhm.
I really don't want to promote myself per se,
Okay.
but for businesses and things like that, I will definitely do that. For whatever reason, I'm just not a social media person. Although it's necessary, it's
Mhm.
necessary. But for me, it's more business online. But I serve in a variety of capacities. And if somebody wants to reach out to me, just reach out to the podcast, and you'll get to me. Let me
Yeah,
say that.
I hear that. And then they could come to a couple of your meetings for NAACP.
So yeah. So
Yeah.
currently, I am the president of the Greater Bridgeport and NAACP, which is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. I am the branch president. But here's the thing. I will say this. I'll be transitioning out of that role
Yeah.
soon. And moving into a different role, we're getting some other new leadership on so that we can push them up to the next level
I hear
as
that.
well. And so, so I'll be transitioning out of that role. But I'm telling you that if you aren't active in your community, get active in your community. You matter. It absolutely matters. And advocacy in all forms, okay? Advocacy matters. Your voice matters, and you should be heard.
I hear that. And on that, man, I appreciate you coming on the pod. You have a good day, and I tell you, man, you are the first person who really put the nail in the
In the
on the
coffin?
board when it came on the
Okay,
coffee
overboard.
when you
Yeah,
said and when you said dream plan execute. So I appreciate you coming on the
I
pod,
love
and you
that.
have a good day, buddy.
All right, you too.
All
Thank you
right.
so much for having me on.